says we are live. We are live. All right. We got Junior the Truth out there. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Friday night chop session with Stormybman, and we are here live for the evening of Friday, June 21st, 2019. We're coming to another week's end, and we're ready to talk the good talk of boxing. And tonight, we've got guests on the panel, the Odd Fella, Marlo's Corner, and Reggie Owens. Good evening, brothers. How you doing? Let's greet everybody that's out there.
Hey, what's good, everybody? How you doing? Thanks for having me, Tony. Appreciate you.
Yes, indeed. I mean, sounding like Junior the Truth out there, out in this bitch. You know what I mean? Salute all those Ohio players out there in the dig. But yeah, salute to the LDBC. Greetings from the North Side. It's your favorite, your most hated Odd Fella. Once again, appreciate it. Love that you're always shooting me that link, giving me that opportunity, Stormybman. So it is what it is. Let's talk about these Glamour divisions.
Good, man. I just want to say I'm excited this evening, brothers, because I'm doing this show. It's a new launch with my new software and everything, and I'm still ironing out kinks, but we rolling now. We rolling with what we have. And I just want to say thank you, brothers, for joining me for this evening. I'm kind of excited about this, ready to talk some good boxing. I know that Reggie Owens had made a suggestion about leading off with something good about this information that's coming in on Tyson Fury. Can you lead us into that, Reggie?
Oh, yes, indeed, man. Coming out with this, these old phony hustlers, man, who think they can sell water to a well with the overhyping of this old dope fiend heavyweight they done signed over there. And, they try to prop him up, trying to make the event look more electric than what it was. And, passing off the falsified belief that this is a sold-out event, that this guy is some kind of superstar within the game. But when these numbers come out, we hear a review of, we hear final numbers of only 5,000 tickets being sold, a bunch of tickets being comped to this, this venue that holds a capacity of 16,000, attendees. But these guys are only able to seats. And I think this is another huge hit on Top Rank and even ESPN, because this event was moved where they had these thoughts. They thought this event was going to be something big. They really thought Tyson Fury was who they thought they can build him up to, where it was supposed to be held at the arena, which is used for the UNLV basketball team, which is a much smaller event. These fools move it over here to the MGM event, leaving this wide open, empty spot. So all in all, man, these dudes took a huge impact, a huge loss, and they're just dumping away cash, man. They're wasting away money instead of utilizing this money to fund it towards the real superstar that sits up under the umbrella of ESPN and Top Rank, and that being Terrence Crawford. But then we hear on the flip side, not to go so much on a tangent, but on the flip side of things, now they're putting out information they don't have a budget for Terrence Crawford if he is to step in there against a Kell Brook. But yeah, that's what I have on that one.
Yeah, man, that's the whole thing with Tyson Fury and going over to Top Rank and ESPN. That the whole idea of that, after what was supposed to take place with he and Deontay Wilder, I just don't have much love for that cat at all, man. I would like to see him fail. I would like to see the network over there fail for that atrocity that they put on, calling it a boxing event. last week, and I can't get behind that at all. So if the numbers ain't matching up, if things are not looking good for them, good. That's what I gotta say about that. Uh, what's your feelings, Marlo?
Yeah, it ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. That's what they get. They dip their hand in the pot, try to play it, talking about milking it. I thought the fight should have happened when it's supposed to. Bob Arum should have stayed in his lane and stayed up out of it. But it looked like it's going to hurt Fury when it come down to negotiations with Wilder again, if these numbers keep looking like this in the next fight.
Mm-hmm. All right, fella, what you got to say?
Don't look too good for Fury in negotiation.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Tyson Fury has never been a big draw. It's a big misconception that Tyson Fury is some type of producing star, like he's on the same level as Wilder. You know what I mean? In the words of 503, I don't know why Wilder's even fathom giving this guy 50-50. You know what I mean? Because obviously, I'm not trying to be no businessman or talk that talk. You know what I mean? That A side, B side jump. But it is what it is, man. And this is the reason why we talking the numbers at the same time. You know what I mean? But yeah, Fury was never that big. We look back when he that fight that was when he did it with Klitschko. That was in Germany. In the dig. That fight, he was on the undercard for Frampton. You know what I mean? For Carl Frampton in Northern Ireland. You know what I mean? Which is a part of the United Kingdom, but nonetheless, that was a stadium fight. It didn't fill the arena. It didn't fill the stadium. You know what I mean? So that tells us, what kind of star Fury has. You know what I mean? It's a big misconception that he has a lot of fans from the UK. But you got to remember, in his heyday, or when he took the 3 belts from Klitschko, he was still loathed. You know what I mean? Because gypsies are considered unsavory people up in the UK. You dig? So I think that's one of the misconceptions we have over here of thinking that Fury is beloved because he looks Anglo-Saxon. You know what I mean? He's a white guy. You dig? But that's not really the truth. You know what I mean? And the proof is in the pudding with the so-called. It wasn't a partisan crowd. It wasn't a really a pro Fury crowd with all these British fan supports. You know what I mean? Because if there was, that place would have packed out. It was only arena of 16,000 at the MGM Grand, and they only did 9,000 and 5,600 sold. I mean, it's much of the same for Fury, but now that much of the same is being exposed for what he is. You know what I mean? The B side. As a matter of fact, before I end it off, man, I want to revisit this. This man, Tyson Fury, he needs to be stripped of the linealship. He shouldn't be the lineal heavyweight champion. The man was caught using steroids with his cousin Huey Fury in a dig, and they got banned. A backdated ban of 2 years. You know what I mean? Within that 2 years, we heard talks about, he was on cocaine, he was having depressions. But what is factual is that he did get banned by the UCAD, which was an absolutely ridiculous ban, backdating him for 2 years. But since that's documented, he shouldn't be the lineal. Linealship is broken when either you lose, you retire, or you test positive for PEDs. That's my take.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I feel you on that, man. And hey, you know what? We can talk about that a little bit, but we don't have to give this dude no shine. He's coming crashing down anyway. You know, the whole thing with him, and I've said it, in some other opportunities to speak about him. He's a dope fiend, and he's a drug cheat. That's it. First and foremost. Anything else is secondary. He don't even face quality opposition. You know, Deontay Wilder and an aged Klitschko, the best opponents he's ever fought. And he got knocked out by Deontay Wilder, you know. And maybe if he wasn't on that stuff, he wouldn't have got up off the canvas or whatever. But I don't know. You know, we can move on from that. Unless Reggie, you got something else you want to offer on the end of this regarding him and that?
No, just like Oddfellas say, man, with these numbers, strict B-side, ain't no negotiations when it comes to the table. Him and Bob Arum have to accept with whatever Al Heyman, Deontay Wilder, Shelley Finkel to put out. The dude is a total flop, zero success. And even with them, how they always want to sell this guy. When it comes to any of the major events that's happened in 2019, Tyson Fury doesn't show nowhere up on it. With that fight, ain't nobody beckoning to go back and rewatch the Tyson Fury fight, clamoring, are hyping. You know, ain't nobody excited about that fight. Unlike Deontay Wilder, people done rewatched that fight over 20, 30 times. I don't think people watched the Tyson Fury fight twice. I watched it yesterday to get kind of a replay on it. It was the boringest crap I ever had to rewatch in my life, and it's only a 2-round fight. But that's all I have on that one.
Yes, sir. I feel you. We can move on gladly. There's news also this week, fellas, that the deal has finally been finalized between Earl Spence Jr. and Sean Porter. So they will be fighting one another. I guess they're just working out the venue or whatever. But I've heard that the deal has been finalized between these guys. We'd like to take a moment and get a little ear to the ground from the panel of how do you guys feel about this fight finally taking place, and how do you see it going? How you your early predictions on it or whatever? How you feel it's going to go down? Marlo, what you got to say about that?
Well, I got Spence for sure in the fight. I think it's probably gonna last a good 7 to 8 rounds before Spence get to breaking them down entirely and Porter quit. I've been waiting on this fight. I think it's a good look for the welterweight division, and it's gonna put the winner out Pacquiao and Thurman on blast, and then Bob Arum is really gonna be I see as far as what to do with Bud. You know what I'm saying? Where you gonna stand with Bud and the money situation. That's also a problem. Like Fury, he ain't been selling. You know what I'm saying? Himself ain't been selling out or doing good numbers anyway, too. So I'm not really about the numbers. I'm just repeating what the promoters be saying about the fights, making it hard for the fights to happen for those reasons, for the number of reasons. The fans want to see it. I believe the fight should happen, and I believe Al Heyman is giving us just that. It's just going to be coming down to that ass belt to see that undisputed champion at the welterweight division.
Yes, sir. Odd fella, what's your take? How do you feel about
it? Unification's always good, you know. I always support that, but I'm still skeptical somewhat of why the fight, why there's no official date for the fight, and why there's no venue yet. You know, dig. And one thing I've been arguing with the mandem about, particularly Stay Ready Boxing and guys like Act Reacher 45, salute to the mandem, is that I'm gonna go out on a limb and say our favorite little leprechaun is gonna find his pot of gold in this fight. You know, dig. I think the season's right, and it's been the year of the upsets. You know, dig. And this leprechaun seemed real hungry, while the so-called Free Smoke Jr. seems real satisfied right now with just being a businessman and looking for the biggest bag. I was sending out little exhibits in the chat in the hangout yesterday, or was it a couple days before, of pictures of Errol Spence looking like a fat chipmunk with a bunch of nuts in his squirreled away in his in cheeks and shit. You know, dig. He was looking hella plump. You know, dig. Pause. But with that being said, I feel that going into this fight, instead of Errol Spence working on strategy and technique to totally dominate a guy like Sean Porter, you know, to totally dominate a guy like Sean Porter, he's going to be spending most of his camp working away the fat. Working away all that fat he's been spending eating these flaming hot Cheetos and whatever I got a video of that. He just up in the camera eating flaming hot Cheetos like that's his sponsor right now. You know, dig? Like, Errol Spence, I'm hoping he goes back to Blue Wave Fitness for this fight. Even I myself use some Blue Wave Fitness's tactics. You know what I mean? When I'm training 3 days out of the week, you know, dig? So. And it does improve. It does improve your physique and your stamina. So I'm hoping Errol Spence goes back to that, because if he doesn't, like I said, the Leprechaun has a real chance of getting that pot of gold. That's my take.
Oh, Reggie, what you got to say about it, bro?
Man, on this one, this is a real entertaining fight, man. It's not going to be a cakewalk. I think both fighters are going to face challenges. You know, Errol Spence is just real super dynamic. I got him in this fight. Really super dynamic dude, but I can't, think he's just going to glide into a guaranteed victory, man. Sean Porter is a dude who's always been a dog in his fights, always giving it his all. He doesn't leave nothing in the ring, and he's a memorable fighter, man. He's a fighter that I think a lot of fighters are reluctant to get back in there with. Ain't nobody begging to clear things up to get a rematch against Sean. It's for a reason. But Errol has to go in this fight taking this guy very serious. And I think the one thing, and this is the term, I never had a term from it, but it's called where fans of a fighter begin to disarm, their favorite fighters by, overpraising them and acting as if they're guaranteed to win, to where the fighter starts to fall into what they're receiving in the media from their fans and becoming too lax and taking this opponent, very lightly. And I'm a fan of both fighters, but I favor Errol in this one. I'm not going to disarm Errol Spence. I'm going to keep things real about it. And this is going to be a tough one. This is going to be a real tough one. Errol ain't never faced an opponent like Sean Porter. Don't think anyone in the amateurs can mimic what Sean Porter brings, but he's going to face a tough one there. It's going to be tough and rugged in this one, and I don't know. I'm just ready to see what happens, but I do favor Errol gaining the decision. No knockouts. It's the A level. I don't call knockouts when two elite fighters are in the ring with, especially elite fighters with solid chins. But this is probably going to be probably a 2-round edge decision in this one. That's what I see in this one. But Errol Spence being very dynamic, he's going to be able to utilize and style on some things. And those are things being him being a taller fighter with the more effective and active jab, which is what Sean has trouble against fighters who are about the same reach and height of an Errol Spence, being they were very effective with their use of the jab. And also we've seen with where Sean had to go back to resorting to trying to be a boxer against you guys, was the fact that when he tried to, what he has always been the premier star at, working on the inside, you guys happen to be more strong and more effective on the inside boxing against Sean Porter. And Errol Spence has a possibility of being the more effective inside fighter, which may result in Sean trying to become a boxer in this fight. But it's going to be real entertaining, and I don't know, it's going to leave a lot to the adjustments that have to be made in this fight. But there's a lot open to this fight to make it possibly a fight of the year, but something that goes down in history as a memorable fight. But that's what I have on that one.
Okay, that's cool. That's good. Marlo, did I get you on that one already? I was watching the chat.
Yeah, you got me.
Okay. And I got Odd Fella too, right? Yeah.
Indeed.
Okay, because I'm paying attention to the chat too, fellas. So don't think I'm tuning you guys out. I'm just kind of watching the chat as well. My take on it is this, man, and I've been known to say this, and sometimes with my comments, I'm going to say something that's not very popular. Uh, I think this is going to be a more difficult fight than almost everyone sees. Uh, the fact that Earl has been waiting for some stellar competition for a while, and taking the fight against Mikey Garcia was not necessarily a fight he had to take, but he was able to show that a lot of what his boxing skills that helped him become such a standout amateur, uh, what he had in the fold. But I see it almost twofold. I saw it as a success and a potential setback because Mikey was moving up. I felt like he should have stopped Mikey in that 8th or 9th round when he had him reeling. He should have went on and taken him out and not let him go the distance. He had beaten him soundly. I don't think Mikey won a round in the fight, but it would have been nice to just close the deal on the guy and finish him off totally to make him feel like, okay, hey, the welterweights is not my home. But he didn't do that. And I noticed that in the last 2 or 3 rounds, because he hadn't, been going the distance like that. He's been getting stoppages, that there was something a little bit missing in the tank, but there was no real threat to him at all. Now, in this fight, what's interesting is everybody knows that Sean has this style that is a very aggressive, and he likes to get rough and tumble and all of that. But of course, Earl is a more physically imposing guy than he is. So he cannot hang his hat on fighting predominantly that way. But he will have opportunities to do things in that manner. But he will need to be very smart, vigilant, and diligent about how he goes about his work. The fight that he had against Ugas, even though Ugas is not by no means a measuring barometer for Errol Spence, but the size, weight dimensions, and possible strength dimensions made a difference. And that may have been why they took that fight, because this is his next fight after that, and it was like maybe they were trying to gauge some things. And as I stated in a different stream, I do believe that they have a history together, Earl and Sean, growing up. That his dad trained them both at one time and everything. And I do believe that there's some familiarity there. So those are intangibles that we can't really equate because we never saw how they work together in the gym and everything. That we can only go on what secondhand information may have come out about it. But as I also said in another stream, that I think that Porter is a better fighter when he's challenging for a title than he is defending defending the title that he's had. Like, he is the type of guy that he fights with a dogged determination. In this fight, he knows he's the underdog. He knows that he's got his work cut out for him. But I've never seen him even close to being knocked out. And, for those who have said things about him being dropped by AB, you could get dropped by a shot that is not even a really hard shot. You could get hit the correct way, lose your balance. You could get knocked off balance. You could get caught off balance. You could just get caught with a shot you didn't see. There's a number of factors that can play into a person being knocked off their feet. But I do believe that knowing the strengths of Spence is going to work to Porter's advantage. I can honestly tell you that Spence doesn't know what Porter's going to do. He knows what he's capable of doing, but he has no idea what kind of game plan or fight that Porter will fight. That being said, if they've studied Spence correctly, his transition from offense to defense is lacking a little bit. He can get caught in between those type of moments. Uh, he operates behind a high guard, and sometimes when he's being offensive, you know, he's looking good at that punch placement, all of that. But the transition to defense, like a couple of times when Mikey came at him and he just backed straight up with his guard up high, I was like, why is he doing that? And I was thinking like he should be stepping around to the side, he should be doing things, throwing uppercuts, and it was not happening. I'm speaking from an analytical point of view. I'm not speaking like in favor of, oh, I like this guy, oh, I like that guy. I'm just trying to give a real conceptualization of what I see with both guys. And because Porter has never ever shown me that he was close to being KO'd, I could see him reaching the end of the fight. But I could also see him suffering or incurring a few knockdowns in the fight if he's reckless. And I anticipate him being very sharp and very aware. So Spence is going to have to set that up. And we'll see. Because as someone said earlier in this chat here, in this stream here, that I think it was our fella talking about the conditioning. If he's that much out of shape that he spends a lot of his camp getting in shape for the fight, and instead of just working on his X's and O's, conditioning could come into play in a fight that could be going to the later rounds or even the distance. So that's how I see that fight. Yes, Spence should be favored, but I don't think that anyone should take it lightly that Porter won't be competitive or can't compete. Anyone got anything else to say?
No, most definitely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm going out on a limb, and I think Porter can get this. You know what I mean? But at that, I'm gonna be real and think I still think Spence should be the favorite fighter, but in essence of what's been going on for the you know what I mean, for this year with all these upsets and right now going on, I think, you know what I mean, now is the right time. If you're gonna get a bet against Spence, this is the time.
Yeah, I hear all the fat comments and all that. Man, I could dig all that. But one thing, we ain't seen Spence get a damn fight where he wasn't prepared or he came in looking sloppy. So I'm not banking on that. I'm just going by what the brother been showing inside the ring. And I'm giving Porter all the props in the world. You know what I'm saying? We saw Porter's boxing skills. We saw what he tried to do against Ugas. He kind of lost that fight, in my opinion. No, kind of. I think he lost that fight. I think it should have been an upset that night. And he got away with it. So far as him boxing, you know what I'm saying, that's not going to be a problem for Spence. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking for him to come and be the real Sean Porter, come forward with his head down, swinging for the fences. Something similar to a Kell Brook fight. That's what I'm looking for to fight. I'm looking for it to be good as long as it lasts. You know what I'm saying? I ain't taking nothing from him, but he ain't got that much time to sharpen up his boxing skills that much where we think that he gonna be able to get in there and outbox Spence on using the outside of the ring. You know, I saw Spence working off his jab, and it looked nice, something that we ain't used to seeing. He was setting up punches off his jab nice. He made a pound-for-pound fighter look like he wasn't even supposed to be in the fight when a lot of people, I know they didn't eat their crow, but they gave Mikey a chance, and it didn't even look like he belonged in the ring with him. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that people overlook. You know what I'm saying? His performances against Brook, you know, Brook was able to land right hands over his jab, over that left hand jab, or hook off the jab. You know, he was able to do a lot, but it wasn't enough. Just wasn't enough. You know what I'm saying? So can't question Spence's heart. You can't question how he react to punches or his adjustments in the ring. I just don't see Porter doing much. You know what I mean? That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and it's all good. That's what we're here to do. We're here to talk about it. Uh, the one thing that I will say above all is that it's good to see that these guys are going to be fighting each other. Um, they are the champions of the division. We've got a couple more champions out there that need to get in there and mix it up as well. And we have one guy who's been a long time champion, who's been very inactive and holding on to titles and everything. And I feel like the guy either should be stripped or he should retire and get the hell away from the sport or whatever and stop hanging around. And that's Keith Thurman. I want to see that belt that he has on the line in the ring against one of these other champions. I'm tired of this guy, and Terrence Bud Crawford, him also. He's got to get in there. As much as I like him as a fighter, his outside the ring persona and how he conducts himself with the media who try to get behind and support him and everything, us black media, the LDBC, everybody, he's just not acting right. And he's going to continue to have box office problems if he doesn't understand how that works. And he has to make himself accessible and available to the people. And he has to be willing to cross the pond and fight those men who are on that other side, because that's where the meat is. Otherwise, he's just going to be a man on the island, and who cares about that? Nobody's going to be sending him any lifeboats, you know. So that's how I feel about that regarding that. But you're absolutely right, Marlo. It's like you have your opinion, and it's a strong one. And I think when we see these guys get in the ring and mix it up, that will settle everything, the outcomes. One of the things that I'm learning about this modern era is that the fighters today, because they're not fighting one another in matches where they could, or even when they were in contention before winning titles and they didn't fight stiff competition, it's almost as if they, they wearing a white suit and don't want to get it dirty or something. And it's like, dude, it's boxing. Eventually you hang around in there, and what's worse, to get knocked off by a guy who nobody saw coming to get you, or to get in there and match your wares against the top guys, and if you suffer a setback, a la J-Rock, you come back. You get yours back. I said this once before. I said there have been fighters who have lost fights, come back and won fights in rematches, and had trilogies because their matchups were so good. There have been fighters who've been knocked out, come back and knock the guy out who knocked them out. There have been fighters who have come back from knockouts. It's boxing. This is what happens at the pinnacle of the sport, at the highest level of competition. Running away from it is not going to ensure me to put any value on you. I need to see you exercise your wares so I can have something to measure it by. I know the difference between fighters that don't belong in the ring with you and fighters who are just marginal for you to stay busy, and fighters who are competitive with you, and fighters who can possibly give you your first loss or your setback or whatever. But the common person who might just be flipping through the stations and just, it's a fight on, they don't necessarily know. And they see you go in there and blow a guy out in 2 or 3 rounds, and they're like, wow, this guy's really something. I mean, look at what we saw with the AJ fight. When you look at those 2 men in the ring and you see AJ standing there with all those muscles and everything, and then you see the little short Mexican guy looking a little spare tire and everything, and you're like, oh, this guy's going to brutalize that dude. Well, yeah, he was brutalized, but it was the other guy who brutalized, the little Mexican guy with the spare tire. There are guys who fight in the bars the same way. You could be in the bar and you see a fight break out, and you see that big old tough honorary guy oh, whoop your such and such. And next thing you know, the little guy said, oh yeah, whap, hit him on chin one time, knock him out, and go back to drinking his Bud Light. You know what I mean? It's boxing,
Yeah.
man. You fellas got anything else to say on that? Reggie Owens, you got something to say?
No, I like everything that was said with that one. I agree totally with everything you stated on that one.
Okay. Well, let me see. I'm just trying to catch up, with what's been the talk of this week. Is there another subject from this week that you guys want to breach before we move forward into our main discussion? Anything that you would like to throw out there or kind of revisit? Anybody?
I don't know if it's official yet, but there's rumors of Alexander Usyk coming back instead of Carlos Takam. He'll be coming back against Joseph Parker. I myself, I like that fight, in the dig, and I believe we shit on Joseph Parker a lot, but he does have a decent skill set. The problem with Joseph Parker is that he don't really have no heart. He don't have that dog, you know what I mean? Because if he just threw more punches, you know what I mean, against in the AJ fight, if he just threw more punches in the Dillian fight, if he got started faster in the Dillian fight, we might be talking about another undefeated fighter, unified champion. But he does have that flaw of not being able to just put on the gas and just have that dog in him. You dig? But this fight can redeem him. If he can take out Usyk, he can be looked at once again as a viable contender, because we gotta put credit on where credit's due to the former undisputed king of the cruiserweight division. And yeah, I believe it's a good fight. Both of them are around the same size or whatnot, 6'3" ish, 6'4" maybe, in the dig. So what y'all think about this fight? If it was to go down, it's still rumored. I don't think it's official, but they are both co-promoted by Matchroom, which is DAZN.
I think it's the proper introduction for Usyk, being it's kind of a safer heavyweight to go with, a heavyweight he can test his speed with, because Parker's one of the faster side heavyweights. He's a little bit more agile than some of the bigger guys, and it'll really be a barometer for Usyk and his team to see where he's at amongst these these titans within the heavyweight division, because I think it's risky for him even moving up to this heavyweight division. I just don't think he has anything that's going to translate up as far as power. His speed ain't even all that when it comes to him being able to move against the kind of top 3, top 4 heavyweights in the division. So it's like, what is his purpose for even going in here? If he can't get past the task of a Usyk, I think even Carlos Takam will be kind of a troubling bout until Carlos Takam begins to subside a little bit due to fatigue issues. But I don't know. I kind of like that fight. I hope that's the fight they make, especially this dude coming up off an injury. He doesn't want to go in against one of the more physically dominating heavyweights who can lay on him and begin to cause injury that way. But yeah, I agree with you on that one. That's the bout I'd like to see Usyk go into. But I'm not too excited about Usyk coming into the heavyweight division. I just think he's going to come in here and he's going to get destroyed possibly. But yeah, that's what I have on that one.
I think that'd be a good eye test for Usyk at heavyweight. Parker tough. He definitely got gas. He know how to work on the inside. That'll give a good look on how he will be able to handle a decent heavyweights punches. You know how you gonna be able to move around in the ring with that weight on him. How you gonna be able to handle the weight with people hanging on him. I think that'll be a pretty good test for him. Really a tough test for him.
Well, personally, I think that Parker, it depends on what he wants to do, man, because I'll give him credit against AJ. The ref interfered with him a lot, where the ref wouldn't let him get close to AJ, and he couldn't work on the inside. Even when he tried to do some things, the ref would always stop that and make him reset and all of this, and he took that away. But when he fought Dillian White, I didn't like what I saw of him, and it's almost like Parker decides at a certain point in certain fights that he's just content with, you know, staying in the battle, but he hasn't convinced me that he wants to win. He hasn't convinced me that he wants to be a winner. And even though he had that WBO strap, I thought, like, you know, he just like Charles Martin, you know, he was awarded that strap by picking it up off a heap. You know, he didn't defeat a real champion for that strap. So it's like, to me, he's at a point in his career, he has to show me something. And I don't mean like me, Stormy B, but meaning me, the boxing fan. He has to show me that, why should I watch him? You know, if Usyk picks him, maybe he's picking him because he feels or sees the same things that I'm talking about. Because Usyk moving up, having unified where he was and moving up where it's going to be tougher, stronger competition, predominantly stronger, that means that a person like Parker is a gauge, you know. And if I'm Parker, I'm supposed to think at this like, this guy is food for me because he's taking me as an opponent, but I'm a former champion. But see, he hasn't fought that way, especially against Dillian White. You know, he should have put on a greater effort there, and he did not. The fight was there for him. Is he really that limited and is not on par with what we would associate with someone who could have been a titleist? Or is he really just an also-ran in the division, which is basically a fringe contender? And that's the way I see the guy. I mean, what do you guys think what I said about him?
I can see where you're coming from, but yeah, he's a fringe contender, but I believe he still can. He's still young, and I believe he still has the ability to come back and be a viable part of this division. You know what I mean? With a couple key victories and some, like, maybe these are lessons learned. Yeah, Dad, because it's not like he doesn't have the ability. It's not like he doesn't have the jab. He just needs to use it in the dig. He just needs to gain some confidence and some type of temperament, more of a temperament, because he's too tempered. And that will, you know what I mean? I think that will go a long way with Joseph Parker in the dig. Yeah, I mean, I really can't, you know what I mean, cape for him too much in the fact that you're saying he's a fringe contender, because he essentially is right now. You know what I mean? I think not two back. He had two back-to-back losses. I believe he has one victory off of this kid from California. I forget what his name is. Unknown, unheralded heavyweight from California. But yeah, I mean, if Joseph Parker was able to beat Usyk, that would put him back in the fray of things, because I myself believe Usyk can make some noise in the heavyweight division, because he already has experience with some of these so-called super heavyweights. He already has dusted off the likes of Joe Joyce. You know what I mean? He already has dusted off the guys like Junior Fa, who are other emerging heavyweights. Junior Fa is an undefeated heavyweight. He might be 11, 12 and 0 right now. I believe he's on. He's with the Bella Entertainment, but he's another guy that Usyk has already dealt with in the semi-pro tournament called the World Series of Boxing. You know, dig. So I think Usyk is being a little bit underrated for his abilities dealing with bigger men. Like I said, he has experience in that already. So I'm sure in some of those Ukrainian gyms, there's plenty of Ukrainian heavyweights that have been giving him that work over the years. So I don't really agree with that statement there. But Joseph Parker, I believe he can still come back and be viable with his skill set, and at his age, he can still turn it around.
See, I was gonna bring that up with Usyk because I'm trying to go back to some of his more competitive oppositions, like opponents that were, you know, kind of highly touted and up to the level he was at. Was he really that dominant of a cruiserweight, or was he one who just, you know, endured more, you know, outlasted, took some of these fighters to deeper waters and, you know, kind of just drowned them from there? And being that with the cruiserweight, does he have what it takes to move up to this division? And that's the thing that draws question to me, because I didn't find him as being too much of a spectacular cruiserweight.
All right, I hear you on that. But have that same energy. I'm not trying to come at you, but I'm saying just have that same energy for what's his name? Michael Hunter Jr. I believe his name is. That they actually fought and Hunter Jr. lost, right? But now Michael Hunter, he's already in the heavyweight division. He's already made his career in the heavyweight division, and I think he's won 3 straight fights by KO. Nobody's questioning whether Michael Hunter Jr. is big enough, or if his skill set is going to translate.
No,
but we're questioning the undisputed cruiserweight champion.
No, I'm questioning Michael Hunter too.
That's already beat Michael Hunter Jr.
Right. No, I'm questioning Michael Hunter as well. I don't think Michael Hunter is the real deal. I think he's being pushed in and propped up as well, and being undeserving of being pushed up and propped up. His last fight was against a UFC fighter who's known for getting his brains bashed in. I didn't think it was too spectacular. And even the other 2 fights, I didn't think it was nothing spectacular about that. I think they found opponents, you know, kind of, if you're under the right type of promotion, they're going to find opposition to kind of pad up the career, move you up, and set you up into title contention. And they were near.
Hey, just to rebut you real quick, I thought his win against Bacoli was actually an upset. Many people thought Martin Bacoli was going to take that because Martin Bacoli is some type of legend up in the UK gyms over there, and he's one of the ones that actually there's rumors that he concussed Anthony Joshua.
But even with Bacoli, man. But with Procol, you got to look at his record. He's padded up like a mug, too. And that's kind of the system, the game that's ran over in the UK. He's faced a lot of upside-down opponents with more losses on their records than they have wins. A lot of things over there just soft-touched in that UK, the UK's biz of things. And I don't think any of the heavyweights that Michael Hunter has faced or anything. Michael Hunter's wasn't he from the Olympic team? So of course they're gonna prop a guy up like that. I just don't think he's been put to the task of really gauging where he's at. And I thought it was the greatest injustice to him by putting him in there against a former UFC fighter. Fabian Maldonado is a dude who just, I don't know what his problem is. He just likes to fight, but he doesn't like to win. But yeah, I don't think nothing of any of the cruiserweights. None of these dudes are Holyfield.
Hold on one second, fellas, and Reggie, I'd like you to continue that. I just want to acknowledge a couple of PayPal donations. We had Gil Coles, salute to you for your gift, and also Lost Dawkins, thanks, brother, for your donations. Um, I want to acknowledge that while I had a chance to do so. Uh, Go ahead, Reggie, on that, because Best Fight the Best mentioned some things in one of his shows this week where he was talking about the records of some of these guys over there and the fighters that we acknowledge to be the name fighters coming out of the UK. Some of the people that they face on their records, it's like ridiculous. I mean, it is really bad. We think that we know club fighters over here and things like that, but over there it's a whole different story. And it's no wonder when some of them cross the pond to take on some of the talent that's over here and they're supposed to be on equal footing, the separation in talent is so tremendous. If you look at some of those people that Anthony Joshua beat in his early part of his career, and you look at Andy Ruiz Jr., Andy Ruiz Jr. would have smoked those guys probably better than Anthony Joshua did. And that's based on his skills. It's really a shame that some of these fighters don't even realize that they're put in that position and that they're not being taught to be able to take care of themselves if challenge is on the horizon. You going out there blowing out like Tyson Fury, the guy that he just fought, that Tom Schwarzenegger dude. That guy did not belong in the ring with him. He didn't even belong in the ring as a sparring partner or anything. He is such a subpar level opponent that's why I said it was atrocious the way that ESPN and Top Rank marketed that whole thing and tried to say that man. It was like, dude, he I don't think he could have beat an amateur heavyweight from the U.S. A person who has had 20 fights in the amateurs. I don't think he could have beat the guy. He's that bad. I mean, what do you think about the UK talent I'm talking about? The UK talent and how they're measuring and rising themselves through rankings.
Yeah, it's atrocious.
I was about to say, yeah, I could wear down Tom Schwartz, and I'm only $170, 5'9". I really think I could do him though. Yeah, I would stop him at 8, but nonetheless, yeah, I hear what you're saying, Stormy B.
Yeah, what they do over there is atrocious, man, and I don't see how whoever sanctions fights or licensed fighters over there allow this stuff, because even the worst one is Kell Brooks, and that's what someone put me on. He's faced fighters where some of these dudes have like 30 losses with 100 and something, about 150 losses, and when they end their careers, like when Kell Brooks fought him, they already had like 100 and something losses to like 30 victories. When they close out their careers, it's like 2 or 3 guys with 200 losses on a professional career. Like, how the hell is this happening? He has a lot of that, and that's why when he came over to he made a bad decision of moving up in weight the way he did, and that kind of just really set the dude back. But that's what happens with these dudes. They're being built up, fighting guys who don't take the sport of boxing serious. It's probably for a quick paycheck, being they can't find any representation behind them, but they look for their stars. They look for their shining stars that probably represented the country in the Olympics, probably done won British World Championships, and those are the ones they kind of feed these guppies to. They feed the guppies to them, and they just work them, pad up these careers, and try to look good. And when they come over here, the exposure is set. But a lot of people haven't been privy into looking at what makes these guys' records look so good, whether they're undefeated or have a high volume of wins with knockouts on them. You have to dig a little bit deeper into the details and find out who they're fighting. When you dig into this, you see what the trick is going over there. There's a lot of master manipulation happening over in the UK, and it's being exposed when they get brought to the table, because that UK market, you see right now, the UK market is drying up. It's kind of at a static standpoint to where now the UK fighters are being pushed outside of the UK market, whether they're fighting here or fighting Europeans over in Russia. But the game is being exposed, man, and it's being exposed through us on YouTube, and it woke everybody up.
I agree with that 100%, Reggie, because before we had something like this, what we have with our community of new media and the LDBC, and being able to have basically 24/7 coverage of the sport, where we can tap into the actual fighters' lives, because some of the brothers out here have those kind of connections, and we got a real ear to the ground of what's really happening with the sport, and we can get the information quick, fast, and in a hurry. And what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of exposure, and it's not just UK cats being exposed. We're seeing exposure with the sanctioning bodies. We're seeing exposure with the promoters. We're seeing so much because we're inundated with so much information now, that whatever we seek, we can have it instantaneously. You know, if we're not talking about it on this channel right now, then the next person who's coming on behind us is probably talking about it, or the person who came on before us was touched on it. You know, it's like, that's the wonderful thing about what we're doing. And it's not even to disgrace anybody or put anyone down. What it is to provide the truth and get the real essence of the sport out there to people. You know, one of the things that is so shameful about ESPN is that if they're supposed to be the world leader in sports, right, and it's owned by Disney, it's like, okay, why aren't they trying to be the leader in putting on quality championship fights? I'm talking about, if you don't want to do the regular fights with fighters who are, you know, taking it to task or whatever, at least the championship fights. Give us the good stuff. They don't even want to do that. They don't even want to give us that. So it's like, how can we have much consideration for you, you know, when you're that way? We want to get the best out of the sport. We're not asking for a lot.
Your mic went out, Stormy.
No, I just, that was my last comment. I say they don't even want to give us that, you know. So I was kind of done, but it's very frustrating, you know, very frustrating. I see we got Carl Burrell has joined us. CB Sports TV, salute. What's going on with you, brother?
Oh, and hey, let me also add. Oh, is CB inside with us?
Yes, he's out there in the chat, but Marlo had to go because he's gonna do his own show. If one of y'all could send a link to CB, he can get on with us if he wants.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, along with what we're saying about even with UK fighters and exposing them, the same thing comes from with these European fighters, and the thing that everybody always with this are whitewashing American media. They always hype up these Eastern Europeans' amateur careers. But what's coming out of amateur system when it comes to the Olympics is the Olympics is trying to kick boxing up out of the competition period. They're trying to get rid of boxing because of what's going on in that amateur system. There's so much fraud and corruption within amateur boxing. And what comes out of that amateur boxing is them giving away fights to these mainly Russians, some of the Asian fighters, and to padding up their amateur careers, making them look spectacular to where they turn professional. All we hear through our media is how great they were in the amateur ranks of things. And just all around, everything's just really being exposed when it comes down to what's happening with folks outside of the United States. We got our corruptions here, but it's worse over in these other places. And it's gotten so worse within the folks coming out of the European system that they're even taking down Olympic boxing.
Yeah. You know, we have to be very vigilant when it comes down to this, man, because it's definitely something that needs to be talked about, and it also has to be talked about so the people can be educated on it as far as knowing what they're looking at and knowing what's being withheld from them. Um, Total exposure. That I'm 100% down for that, man. I'm 100% down for that. But I want to go ahead and move in. We're going into the second hour. I want to go ahead and move into our main topic of discussion for the chop session for this evening, and that is the glamour divisions of the sport. Um, the glamour divisions have always been considered the divisions that are outside of the heavyweight division, and divisions where there has been hot contenders and matchups and fights for the divisions that are outside of heavyweights, because the mantra has always been, as so go the heavyweights. That's the way boxing follows. So when we're talking about the glamour divisions, it can be multiple ones, it could be just a couple of them, but wherever the fire is outside of the heavyweight division. Reggie, do you have your own set glamour divisions?
Man, 147. I like everything that's heating up out of the welterweight division. I like all division, but when it comes to the collective that where I think big fights are happening is definitely at 147 and also 160. I think things are going to heat up down there. I don't think the division stops with Canelo. There's other fights that can be made at that division. It's just these guys have to get things to going. Even when it comes to folks who aren't even highly recognized, such as Charlo getting in there with a Korbov, and how electric that fight was. There's some real entertaining fights at 147 is just full of stars. A lot of fighters who have the potential, to really make a huge name for themselves. But I think 147 is definitely a glamour division, and 160 is for me as well. And also, 175 got some heat in it. Dang, it's a bunch of divisions with some heat in it. 175 has some heat in it. And I think those three would be the glamours for me.
Yes, sir. That sounds pretty good there. Odd fella, what do you think? What do you feel are glamour divisions for you?
I initially had heavyweight as one of my glamours in the day, because I feel like they're always, that's where a majority of the big money fights always happen in the dig. So that's glamour goes with the big money in the dig. So that's why I would put the heavyweight division as a glamour. But to sticking by your rule set, I would only have two, and my two would be the welterweights. Historically, the welterweights and the middleweights. Both of those divisions always had big fights. You know what I mean? Big fights, big matchups. The best fighters always wanted to hold championship belts in those weight classes. So yeah, I would have to say the welterweight 147s as well as the middleweights 160. To me, 175, it's hot division right now. But to me, historically, it's never been like, to me, a glamour division where you had guys that were notoriously household names, other than when Roy Jones got there, you know what I mean, in the twilight of his prime, in the dig. But to me, for the most part, the light heavyweight division has been hot. It's been a good division, but I wouldn't call it glamour, where you got all these, you know what I mean, fight, big dollar, big money generating fight after fight. I wouldn't say that about that division.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I want to take a moment to acknowledge another PayPal donation. We got Joseph Brown who came in and I'm sorry, I was trying to read his comment and I lost it here. 1 second. He says, "Great show, Stormy B. You bring some interesting takes on the upcoming fights, fighters, and possible outcomes. Odd fella, Marlo's Corner, salute you brothers for helping us all sharpen our knowledge of the sport. And don't forget Reggie Owens. Reggie is on there with us too. So thank you so much there for your donation there, Joseph Brown. I really appreciate that. To follow up on what you were saying, I fella about the Glamour divisions. Um, Usually it was middleweight and welterweight. Sometimes the lightweight division would get pushed up there through history, depending on who was fighting there. But in today's time, I think the two Glamour divisions outside of heavyweight primarily are welterweight and middleweight. And again, the tone that's being set for the sport, it kind of leaves a filthy taste in your mouth because the quality of matches that are available to be made as opposed to the actuality of them taking place, it leaves something to be desired. I mean, we got a guy out there like, let's just use the middleweight division for a moment. You got a guy out there like Boo Boo Andre, right? This guy is undefeated, a talented boxer puncher, and he's been out there for a long time. He's had some dry spells in his career with managerial and promoter issues and all of that, but he's still an undefeated fighter out there, and he should be in a fight. He should have had a couple of lit fights by now, but he hasn't. And you got guys out there like Triple G, and you've had networks giving this guy all the accolades and everything, and he's avoiding guys like Boo Boo Andre. Demetrius Andre deserved that type of shot against a guy like a Triple G, since he was supposedly who the networks were hyping and backing and everything, right? Or even Canelo. But I'm just saying, these kind of fights are not happening in a Glamour division. Then you go like to the welterweights and what we're talking about with what's happening down there. Sean Porter is now getting ready to fight Earl Spence, finally. But Earl Spence, what is he had the IBF for like 2 years now or something like that? Keith Thurman should have been mixing it up with Earl Spence already. Because Keith Thurman, I think, is the longest reigning champ there, even though Sean Porter had won a title before and lost it to Kell Brook. But Keith Thurman had been there before Earl even won his title. And wasn't it Keith Thurman who says, oh, when he wins a title, then I'll see him? Well, it's funny how when Earl won his title, Keith went off on a tangent talking about he had surgery on his elbow and he was hurt. Then he went to the eastern part of the world and he took up flute playing and all of this stuff. It's like he did everything but face Earl Spence. And he still hasn't faced Earl Spence. And it's crazy that these men are talented and possibly deserving of accolades, but how can we totally put our support behind them when they don't face anybody? It is so frustrating. And it's like, wow, if they start mixing it up at the top of the divisions, like in heavyweights, it'll force these other guys to do it because it's like they're going to want their shine. They're going to want their consideration. And who the hell's going to consider a guy that's always fighting, Mean Machine and all of those little chumps that they can pull up out of their behinds to just put on a fight and to justify a sanctioning fee, but they're not giving the people quality. I mean, how do you fellas feel about that? Reggie, what you got to say?
Man, my thing about these guys not fighting is the dangers behind it. The dangers of these guys not taking on the top challenges and being embarrassed. The AJ defeat is a huge lesson across all divisions within boxing. That's why you started hearing this kind of rapid push of fighters wanting to take on unification type bouts. But I think it's sad because it's going to be something that plagues some of these fighters. This ain't like the old days. Right now, we live in this age of information where we research and we gather everything and we know the true get down of fighters. So the pressure is on these dudes. They have to get in here. They have to make these bouts. They have to stop babysitting these titles and taking on, kind of unworthy competition. I ain't gonna call nobody a bum, but kind of unworthy opponents that step in the ring. It should be more work towards these fighters facing other title holders and coming up with just a singular champion, such as what the women have been doing in boxing. But I think it's just going to come to a point to where we're seeing it begin to happen, like you say. Once it begins to happen in the heavyweight division, it'll start to trickle down, and I think we're right near that process, the trickle down effect, and where it's starting to happen. But Andy Ruiz defeating Anthony Joshua, Charlo being upsetted and what most people view as a robbery, Jared Hurd losing his belt, things such as that is starting to really wake folks up within the sport of boxing who hold these titles. Like, you have to, and then the other side of things, taking on other champions is financially beneficial to a fighter. That's where you're going to see the maximum of dollars happening for the careers. I don't understand the thought of wanting to sit on belts and being afraid to let old, undefeated records go. You face the best, you get paid the best, and that's the way I look at it. But that's all I can think on that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a quick moment before you go, fella. I want to acknowledge another PayPal donation from Eric Jenkins. He says, "Love the content of the chat. Keep bringing the word of boxing to the fans, bro." Yes, indeed, Eric Jenkins. That's what we're trying to do, man. We're trying to bring it out and talk about it and learn more about it and share it and learn from you all, because sometimes people in the chat have a great deal to offer too and have news that we haven't heard yet. Sometimes when you post it there, it'd be the first time it hit our ears sometimes, and it's like, hey, we have to talk about it. And this is the wonderful thing about what we're doing. I remember, I was a guy, I don't know about my fellow guys on the panel, but I was a guy, I used to buy the Ring magazines and the KO magazines. And I had issues after issues. I had so many, and that's where I got my boxing news from. And unless a fight came on HBO or every once in a while CBS Sports TV or ABC Sports TV or something like that, you had to wait to find out what was happening in boxing. Your nightly news sports show didn't say nothing about boxing. Even if there was a fight that day, they still didn't cover it. It was ridiculous. So it's really nice that we can come together like this and share so much about the sport. And we're from all walks of life and all parts of the world. It's not like we're all sitting in the same city or something. Everybody out here that's even in the chat or on the panel, whatever, is from a different place. And that's the wonderful thing. We're all connected through this wonderful thing called the sport of boxing. And I just want to give it to in its purest form of truth and share and learn as much as I can and share it with you all and enjoy the experience of talking about it with you all. So thanks again for the donation, brother. So Oddfellow, what do you think about what Reggie had to offer there in his last comment?
I had to step away for a little bit. You give me the replay of what Reggie was cooking on, because I know he was cooking on the Glamour divisions, but then we kind of went off on a little tangent.
Well, Reggie, do you want to revisit for our fella like your last sentiments to crystallize them for him so he can have a rebuttal?
Yeah, I was really speaking on the importance of fighters taking on, kind of not mandatory challenges, but taking on title unifications, and this is something that can hamper the legacy of a lot of these fighters, and then also with them taking on soft touches to where a lot of these underdog opponents are really motivated to coming in here and causing these shocks into the game. So, and then in the long run, it affects these dudes financially. So, that's kind of really the gist of it, is these fighters having to, stop protecting these undefeated records and trying to hold on for titles for so long. We're knowledge based fan base, and we know when a fighter's taking a soft touch, and they would not gain any type of credit towards a legacy by facing whack downing, like using that word. I ain't gonna disrespect nobody, but taking on lower tier opposition when it comes to this fight game. But that's really the gist of what I was saying.
Yeah, no, I have no rebuttal for that. Definitely, I agree with that. Fighters' activity is not only just the fighters' activity, it's the level of opposition they need to maintain. You know what I mean? Once again, to go back to some of these UK fighters and the way BFTB was exposing Dillian White's record. There was one guy on there, I believe, that had over 60 losses and whatnot. And mind you, a lot of these guys are pretty much career journeymen, but journeymen in the sense that, yeah, they have those 60, 80 losses, but they're in there to just pretty much take a body punch and then find a nice place to lay down. They're not really taking getting really KO'd or nothing like that. They're just career survivors and quitters, and that's why I kind of like guys that are being hyped by some of the men up in the in the Lions Den boxing community. Guys like Anthony Yard, I just really can't trust. I look at him as suspect because he has guys like that littered all over his records. I've seen some of his fights, and some of these guys are, I'll say it, Euro bums that are just there to be career survivors and career quitters once they taste a little something, you know what I mean, on the underbelly, you know, dig. So most definitely these fighters need to not only keep up the activity, but keep up the level of opposition, because, you know what I mean, that is, you know what I mean, you gotta you gotta fight other real opposition to stay sharp. You can't just be at you can't fight the low levels and expect to be, you know what I mean, at a high tier. You fight high level, you will be high level. You are what you eat, in a sense.
Man, that's a good way to put it there, our fella, because it's exactly true, man. You know, if you're dining on, let's just say, for lack of a better term and using the old boxing term, if you're dining on tomato cans, you know, you're going to end up being a little squishy yourself, huh? So it's like somebody going to look at you as food, especially they see your resume is a list of, you know, never words and never could have beens or whatever, and then they're gonna look at you like that because it's like, hey, you never tested your metal, you never went out there and stepped out there and, you know, bet on yourself to be a conqueror, you know, and so they're gonna look at you as food. So, excuse me, I agree with that 100%, man. That's a great way to put it. Um, I think the junior welterweight, the junior middleweight division is really popping now too, especially now that a couple of the titles have changed hands. I mean, a year ago, we didn't even see that. It was like we were hoping for a Hurd and Charlo showdown, which kept getting put on the back burner or whatever. I guess you could say because of Hurd, because he was saying, "Oh, I need to fight what 2 more right-handers or southpaw, whatever it was." He said he need to fight 2 more of this kind of style or whatever. Then he'll be ready and this and that. And it turns out he went out and slipped on a huge banana peel, huh? But before he slipped on his banana peel, Charlo got dealt a reality check in boxing. Now, a lot of people felt like he won his fight against Harrison, but Harrison got the decision. And guess what? That teaches you. You leave the judge's decision in your gloves, huh? You go out there and you put forth such an effort that they can't rob you, that they can't take it away from you. This is what happens when fighters rest on their laurels and read their own press clippings and talk to their own people all the time and don't have an ear to the ground of the fans, because the fans want to see you do your best. But the fans will turn on you ice cold when you give them a reason to, huh? And he got a reality check. He could have done so much more in that fight to ensure himself a victory, whether you felt he won or not, but he didn't get the decision. And the funny thing is that Tony Harrison is not a bad fighter. You know, he's got pop in his punches. He can box. You know, he's had a title. You know, and the thing is like, this is what it's about. Maybe these guys can fight a couple more times when Harrison gets himself together after he heals from his surgery and everything, because that's what the sport is about, you know. And maybe if someone decides to take more risk in the fight, you'll see something even more exciting, because I believe both guys can hurt one another in the fight between Harrison and Charlo. I don't think that's one-sided as far as who can lay the hurt on the other. I think they both are equally adept at being able to hurt the opponent. Now you throw J-Rock into the mix now, and as they say, sometimes when a person wins a title, it can make them, 30%, 40%, 50% better a fighter. Well, J-Rock looked pretty darn good that night, and he looked like he learned some things from his fight with the older the bigger Charlo. So, that being said, I would like to see it. A nice round robin between these guys at that weight class. And then if Hurd can go back to the drawing board, develop his skill set a little more, fight a couple of fights where he can work on some things, and he can get right back into the fray as well. You got a nice little thing going on at that junior middleweight division. What do you guys feel about that, Reggie?
Yeah, a round robin at the 154 would be dope, man. I would definitely love to see that. Man, it's just so many. There's so much potential within that division, and there's so much potential in guys who aren't even on the radar yet. And all it takes is just for one, shot at an opportunity, especially get an opportunity to be televised. And we'll just see someone else that comes in here and creates shockwaves. But to watch, see a round robin between the Harrisons, the Charlos and J-Rock will be spectacular. And then also to get some new blood within the game. And that's the way I feel about underdogs. And I think any fighter that's coming into this sport of boxing to compete, they shouldn't sit on what people label them as or think of them as just being, easy launching into adding a win on kind of the propped up stars within the division. I think underdog opponents should come in here when everybody counts them out and shake the game up. But I don't know. I would love to see all three of those guys with the titles get in there, mix it up, and entertain the fans, man. Give us memorable nights, things that we'll talk about as time passes within the sport, as we all age. just give us these memorable moments, man, because that's what boxing is all about. Boxing is all full of memorable fights, man. Fights that you go back, we age, have grandkids, you talk to them about it. So that's why I look forward. And these guys at 154, they have the potential to do that, to bring on classic events that we just sit back and have a chop up about. So yeah, I definitely would like to see what pops off at this division, most definitely. And also seeing some shakeup, seeing these underdogs take the sport serious and make a name for themselves, come out of the shadows and bring on some new rising stars, and also put pressure on these guys who are current champions. That's what I like about it.
What you got, odd fella?
Yeah, I like the round robin ideal. Seeing all these guys, you know what I mean? These guys fight. J Rock, Harrison, Charlo, and Jared Hurd. But at the same time, to be real, it's a hot division. Yes, can't forget we got Lara and Castano in there as well. We got Michel Soro out of France, who's a very credible fighter in my estimation. We got Erickson Lubin. But 154, in my estimation, is the same as 140 to me. And I believe they're like feeder divisions for the Glamour. You know what I mean? When it boils down to it. I want to see some of these guys, you know what I mean, move up and wait, you know what I mean? Like Jared Hurd, I want to see him get in the mix, you know what I mean? Get in the mix with the big boy division, which is the middleweights, you know what I mean? Well, what can he do? You know what I mean? How can he match up with guys like Jamal Charlo and Boo Boo Andrade and the Danny Jacobs of the world and the Darian Chenkos and whatnot? We know the Canelo and Golovkins are gonna stay to the sidelines and not want to fight nobody. So yeah, let's be real. Like how would they mix amongst, you know what I mean, that cross section of the middleweights and whatnot? You know what I mean? And even if Canelo wanted that, get some work from a 154 pounder, which is quite, you know what I mean, possibility, because he wants every advantage possible. I mean, I believe it would be good look, you know what I mean? Same with guys like moving down like to the 140 division. I'm patiently waiting for Regis Prograis, you know what I mean, to come up to 147 and see what he can do in the mix, you know what I mean, in the mix of the scuffle with all these men like Errol Spence and Terrence Bud Crawford. Where do we put Regis Prograis if he left the 140 division and went into the welterweights right now? You know, dig? Where would he be? Could he dust off Thurman already? That's what I mean. Like, to me, these divisions are feeder divisions to the Glamour, and that's my take. But yeah, most definitely, I wouldn't hate. I would definitely support that action if they was to get together and do a round robin. But at the end of the day, I think at the end of that round robin, we'll be seeing your guy from Philly, J Rock.
Yeah, you're right, but a round robin at that weight with the guys, the names that we mentioned, the names you just mentioned, I think it's great. But you know something? The reason why the junior divisions came into play is because some of those guys, it's funny. They are so much smaller than just that few pounds above them that there's a huge separation, you know. But also what the junior divisions did was it gave guys an opportunity to be artificial, meaning that they could reduce their body mass and go down early in their careers for a chance to garnish titles and title shots, and make themselves a multiple division champion, so to speak, without really fighting at their legitimate weights. And the disparity is like ridiculous. Look at Canelo, for example. He's all the way up to 168 and will fight at 160 and defend belts or whatever around there. But he was fighting at 155 or something and was coming in like at that weight against the guys he was fighting at that catch weight division that he created or they created for him. It's terribly unfair when guys have that type of advantage. I think people forget the fight that Arturo Gatti had against Joey Gamache, where Gotti put on after the weigh-in like 30-something pounds, almost 40 pounds, and he nearly killed
Gotti was
Joey
a damn near
Gamache.
light heavyweight.
What was that? What was that, odd fella?
Yeah, I said Gotti was like a light. I said Gotti was damn near a light heavyweight. I think maybe a cruiserweight that night.
Yeah, and he almost killed that guy. And it was so unfair. And the thing about it is, they let him get away with something like that. But to me, that's criminal, man. That's absolutely criminal. Marvin Hagler, people used to give him crap because he was so good that he didn't move up to the light heavyweight division and try a title there. Marvin Hagler fought his entire career, 60-something fights at middleweight, 160 pounds. And even when he didn't fight, he was always between 8 to 12 pounds of his fighting weight when he wasn't fighting. That's dedication. That's something that you're not seeing of these guys of today. Marvin Hagler, Hall of Fame fighter. Even if you see him today, he only looks like he's put on about 20 pounds. And the man is like 60 plus years old now. So it's like, it's totally different from, that. But we're talking about when he was in his 30s, he was still, like I said, between 10 to 12, no more than 15 pounds. But he was about maybe 12 pounds over his fight weight. Marvin stayed in shape. And he's not the only one, but I used him as an example because of his success and how he kept himself in condition. You said earlier in this stream about Earl Spence, looking like a chipmunk with his cheeks all fat and everything, and he's not 30 years old yet. Why are you so out of shape, man? And you ain't fighting nobody. You got to get in there and fight. You got to, and I know they're getting paid more now, so they can afford to sit back and sit on their behinds more now. But why should I rain him with praise and accolades if he's not getting in that ring, giving me what I want to see? I want to see the matches. I want to see him fight. I want to see him fight frequently. I don't want to see him once a year. Do you know how many other sports I can watch and stuff in a year's time? Well, I won't even be thinking about you by the time you get back in the ring. See, they don't think about it like that. But they do rely upon the fight fans to buy the tickets and to buy the pay-per-views and things like that, right? So it's like, come on. What do we get in return? I mean, what do you guys got to say? Reggie, you got something on that?
No, just the returns, man. They're fooling people with the returns because, like I was stating about how informed a lot of, even though we got a lot of casuals, I think we have a large population of highly informed, fans of the sport, and to where we're just not going to accept what is put out. So, just based on the quality of opposition that people are facing within the sport, that can no longer happen. And I think we're hitting, the boxing is hitting that critical point to where even promoters with these poor numbers that they're receiving, the promoters know it, and the fighters, if they act like they don't know it, they know it. And I think we're at a point within the sport of boxing, and I state that is because that's why you see a lot of other people such as the Dana Whites trying to shift over into this game. But I think the returns on the returns on the sport are kind of in a good situation. That's the way I look at it. And then also before we flip over, at some point, I want to go into the Anthony Yard thing because our fella brought up Anthony Yard's name and I went into looking into his record. So at some point before we get off, I want to speak on that.
Okay, if you want to go ahead and chop on that right now, you can. Just give our fella a chance to say something. You got something to say, our fella?
Nah, I'm actually eager to hear what you know what I mean, what got to say about Anthony Yard.
Okay, go ahead, cook on that, Reggie, about Anthony Yard.
Yeah, because it made me, it dawned on when we were speaking about how that UK system kind of builds these fighters up, you know, throwing in whack opposition, making the records look good. So I want to check out Anthony Yard when you brought him up. And Anthony Yard falls right into the same damn system of where he's being propped up from fighting nobody. And then I'm going to look at some of the records. So I'm going to look at what the fighters, when he fought them, and then to where their records sit currently. So in his first fight, he fought this cat, Mitch Mitchell. He looked impressive with a knockout. Mitchell had 5 wins, 38 losses. Mitchell's current box records is 7 wins, 3 of his wins by knockout. He has 64 losses, been knocked out 9 times with 3 draws. But this is the one that take the cake. There's an opponent he fought. Where is this cat at? In his, his 5th fight. This guy named Curtis Granano. This dude he had 0 wins with 11 knockouts. This dude, current career, he had a fight. Matter of fact, he had a fight in, June of 2018. This guy's current record on box record, he has 0 wins with 51 losses, seven of those by stoppage. And this is kind of where he goes, where he's fighting these upside down opponents. It's just ridiculous, man. What goes on within the system over there is just they're making these guys look good, and there's probably fights that I've watched without being, you know, cognizant of what the records of the fighters they may end up facing. I don't think they really kind of make you privy to that. They just put a name and throw them in there. These guys look spectacular, but they're building these dudes through that UK system, man. And with the way these records look, I wonder how he's going to look against a Kovalev. I don't know if this dude is really ready. Just look spectacular against what they're setting him up with. And it's just everything's ridiculous. And I think it should be a huge drive of forcing UK propped up stars up out of there. They have to be pushed up out of there and brought up over here, man, because this shit is just ridiculous. This is a new thing for me to start looking through these records. And when you look through these records, man, it's some real suspect criminal shit that's going down within the sport. Like
0-11, man.
Yeah, 0-11, but the guy's currently 0-51.
That's ridiculous. You know,
ridiculous as hell.
And see, you know what? We say it's ridiculous, Reggie and our fellow, but it's not. It's criminal. Because you think about it like this. A guy like that, right? He's building his record on these type of, and I love the term that I heard Reggie use in one of his streams when he said soft-fisted fighters. Oh, that had me cracking up. When he said, you know, soft-fisted fighters. But he's building his career on these guys. So eventually he's going to step up and fight somebody. He's going to get killed. You understand? Mm-hmm. Because the guy that he's going to step up and fight, more than likely, is going to be an American fighter. You know? And somebody who can scrap. Because even the American fighters who are not like elite, they can still fight. You understand? You take a guy like, let's go in history a little bit, Emmanuel Augustus. Huh? The drunken master.
Right.
That dude, he had a record that wasn't pleasing to the eye, but a lot of the fights that he lost, because he was a road warrior type guy, he was fighting in hometowns and stuff like that. People were giving hometown decisions over him when they didn't really beat him. You understand? So he's that kind of fighter that you bring one of those UK guys over to fight him, and they're going to get their butt mopped the floor with him, because it's like he's that good. He can fight. He's skilled. He gave Floyd Mayweather one of his toughest fights. You know? And the only reason why Floyd beat him was because Floyd was extremely skilled. He was still really young at that time, and he was able to get away with a lot of things with his speed and everything. But Emmanuel Augustus was a handful for anybody. And that's just one dude. You understand? It's like when you talk about those guys over there in the UK and they're fighting those soft touches like that, you know, Nigel Benn, when he fought Gerald McClellan, if Emmanuel Stewart were with Gerald McClellan that night, Gerald McClellan would have been victorious. First of all, the climate was set up for Ben to win that fight totally. He was knocked out in the first round, and they let him fall out the ring and climb back in and everything. He didn't beat the 10 count, but because they were in the UK, they let him do it. And there were several instances in the fight where Gerald McClellan had him really in bad shape, and they could have stopped the fight, but they didn't. But Emmanuel Stewart would have made a huge difference in Gerald's corner. But they were having issues because Emmanuel wasn't with him the whole time during his training camps, and he didn't want to pay him that trainer's fee for like coming in for the last week of the week before the fight or something like that. So Gerald McClellan was like, forget that. These guys can be my cornermen or whatever. But you see what happened. And I'm not trying to rub anything in his face or anything like that, but I'm saying this to bring up a point. How important it is when you have solid people around you and you travel, and those guys over there, they have it easy. They have everything set up for them, whether it's the judges in their pockets, whether it's the opponents that are selected for them to fight. Because I think what it is, at the end of the day, boxing is a lot bigger over there, but it's a show, huh? And sometimes when you're putting on a show, there's a lot of ad-libbing and acting going on. It's not like really real. You understand? Like reality TV over here. Over there, boxing is their reality TV. It's like, oh, you see a big muscular guy droning these guys and knocking them out and everything. You be like, oh, he's a real man. He's this and that. That's our guy. But the guy's like soft as Charmin, man. That's wet. And that's what they've been doing. They've been selling that a great deal. And whenever the guys come over here, that's when they get exposed. Or when they go outside of that element. Because it doesn't always have to be over here. They could go to another country or whatever and have a match against somebody there. And because they're not in that element where everything is made up for them and catering to them and everything, they're like that fish out of water. The proverbial fish out of water. That's exactly what it is. So, that's what I had to say about that. I mean, anybody else have anything to say on that, or?
No, that's all I had on that one.
No, those were some good points. Yeah, there definitely been some, just to harken back a little bit, about certain journeymen. You know what I mean? Comparing those UK surviving journeymen to some the American journeyman, Emmanuel Augustus, or AKA Emmanuel Burton. Even guys like Darnell Boone. I believe he knocked down Andre Ward before he was beaten by decision. Kovalev was knocked down and might have had a draw with Darnell Boone. And actually the first fight with Boone was removed from existence off of YouTube suspiciously. And Adonis Stevenson suffered his first loss I believe, by Darnell Boone. Knocked him out. So Darnell Boone is another guy, has a lot of losses on his record, but he gave some of the more elite fighters in the super middleweight and the light heavyweight divisions some real smoke.
Yeah, man, it's amazing how when you are up on the sport, like you two brothers are up on the sport definitely, and we're having this discussion together. But can you imagine someone that's just coming new to the sport and they think they're seeing they think they're seeing really class and good stuff, but you don't realize how mediocre it is. This is why, like, any I don't have any thing to say much about Usyk because he unified the belts at cruiserweight, but people showered him with accolades like he's really, really good. Now he might have been really, really good at cruiserweight, but he still wasn't Evander Holyfield, huh? And now he's talking about moving up to heavy. What was that?
No, we about to get it in now.
Well, where I was going with that is this: he moved up to heavyweight, but if you think about it, what is his eye set on at heavyweight? I don't think he's set on Deontay Wilder. I think he's set on everyone else that's outside of Deontay Wilder, including Anthony Joshua, who just lost his titles. But because of his boxing ability and everything, and the heavyweight division is very shallow. They got guys up there who don't want to fight each other, right? But you got guys up there who are not that good. You probably got about 6 heavyweights that are really the top of the heap. And then after that, there's a tremendous drop off. So he can make some hay in that division right now, as long as he stay the hell away from Deontay Wilder. And the funny thing is that there are heavyweights up there who don't want to face somebody who has good skills, or at least above average skills, decent skills. And you take a guy like a Dominique Brazil, he's a big man, but he's not that skilled himself. So a victory over him makes you look good when you beat him, whether you knock him out or you decision him. And I think that's why Usyk jumped up there, because there's a window of time that he can get some things done up there. But there are definitely, some matchups that he could have problems with. But there's not a lot of skilled guys in the division. And you figure you take a guy like Luis Ortiz, who happens to be one of the most skilled heavyweights at the top of the division. He's on his way out, basically, because he's an older guy. And a couple more years, you won't even be talking about him anymore. So it's like Usyk has that time. You understand? He has that time to kill. Even Deontay Wilder, who will be on the other side of, 35, 36 in a couple more years, there you go. He's going to be moving on pretty soon. So there's some hay to be made. And you just saw what this young man was able to do, Andy Ruiz did to Anthony Joshua. So what does that say for what's happening out there in the division? Do you think Usyk is more skilled than Andy Ruiz? There's something to be said.
It is. It is. Yeah, that's a very good question. And that's a very good fight, very good matchup that I still would favor Andy Ruiz, but not by much. You know, dig. Once again, just to reestablish what I think Usyk's going to be in the heavyweight division, which is a credible contender, and maybe latch on to a belt that falls away from one of the champions somehow. Probably Ruiz. But I mean, Usyk went in there. If we're looking at his cruiserweight credibility, he did fight Maris Breedis. Now, who's Maris Breedis? Maris Breedis is he only has one loss, obviously, to Usyk, and he's a 6'3" Latvian cruiserweight with fairly good skill, good power as well. Now, the interesting thing about Maris Breedis is that he fought at heavyweight, I believe, a couple fights. But the one fight in particular, he fought the current WBA world champion, as my boy Ak Reacher likes to call it, the secondary black belt. He fought Manuel Char and sent Manuel Char to sleep. You know what I mean? Light work for Maris Breedis. Now, these are what some of these cruiserweights can do. You know what I mean? This is your current WBA world champion. Let me reiterate, in the dig. Maris Breedis put him to sleep. Usyk, decision. Mind you, I watched that fight. That was a World Boxing Super Series fight for the unified cruiserweight. And I believe it was a draw. And Usyk really needs to run it back with Maris Breedis, because that was actually his the most competitive fight that Usyk has had to date. But once again, I'm just trying to shed light to the cruiserweight division, being that it does have some credibility, because some of these guys that are cruiserweights, no, they aren't Holyfield, but yes, they are easily defeating and knocking out some of these middling heavyweights. So if you can defeat a middling heavyweight, you definitely can compete with the elite of the heavyweight division.
Yeah, it's it's definitely something to be said. We're at a real important time in the sport, because the key thing that we seem to reiterate is fighters are not fighting one another. Everything will shake itself out when people compete in the ring. You cannot really make much more assessment than like predictions or something, than when the matches are not taking place. And there's such a clusterfuck at almost every division of men not facing each other, not even contenders facing one another to get a title shot. For an example, that you got Dillian White out here thinking someone should give him a title shot without him earning a title shot. Where does it state that anyone has to give you anything? And then in some of the other divisions, you have fighters who are just that they exist, but they're being ignored, a la Jamal Charlo and Demetrius Andrade. These guys should be fighting. They should fight each other. Why not? Huh? It's a good fight. And the more that you talk about it and the more that you acknowledge it and look at it for what it is, it begins to really put a sour taste in your mouth about the sport of boxing, because it's so diluted. It's like it could be so much higher and so much more superior than where it currently is. Why are people happy to receive mediocrity? I don't know. But that seems to be the way our society has moved, that we accept mediocrity. We could accept somebody who's a bum who to be in a White House, or someone who is like, a criminal to be a politician. It's like, what? There was a time when it was like ethics were totally different. Now it's just you can let anybody in. Huh? You got pedophiles in your schools. You know what I mean? Corrupt officials, corrupt police people. It's ridiculous. And it's okay. It's like people just shrug their, it is what it is. And that's how boxing has fallen. It is what it is. It's like people say, oh, well, they don't want to fight each other, so. But I'm not happy with that. So I don't know, fellas. It's just something to be said, I guess. But we're right at that hour spot, guys, and I think we should go ahead and get some final words so we can get ready to sign off. And I want to say thank you to everybody that's out there in the chat that joined us this evening for this 14th episode of the Chop Session. Everybody was really out there with us riding tonight. I want to thank everyone who was able to give a PayPal super chat, and just really appreciate everybody for the support. Our fella, you got some last words for us?
Once again, respect for shooting me that link. In the dig, I always love chopping it up with y'all on Friday. You know what I mean? The chop session. You know what I mean? It's become a staple part of my week. You know what I mean? So salute to you, Stormybman. Salute Reggie Owens. You know what I mean? It was a pleasure to, you know what I mean, discussing this sweet science with y'all tonight. You know what I mean? With that being said, it's your favorite Get Your Most Hated Off fella. And I'll be back for another live stream. Salute to the chat. Salute to the LDBC. And I'm Gizon.
Yes, sir. That's what's up. And Reggie Owens, my brother, thank you for joining us this evening again, rolling with us tight. You got some final words for us?
Yes, indeed. First, I'd like to start by saying thank you, OG, for bringing me back on. Salute to Marlo's Corner. Salute to my brother Oddfella. And salute to all the brothers and sisters in the chat. But my thing, man, great conversation, man, as always. And great conversation to have in a sport that I love. I would never get my sports information from any of these networks. It's going to be strictly from the brothers that are associated with the LDBC, new media, black media. And I started my thing off with rocking with Dante's Boxing Nation. And it's always been a great thing to find like-minded folks when it comes to keeping things fair, balanced, and honest within the sport. And that's what I love. A great conversation, man. Conversation rules the nation. So that's what we get out of tuning in to these type of conversations, and they're very key and critical, especially for brothers to get on here and philosophize over this great sport and to politic, man. But always thank you, Stormy B, man, the OG in this boxing game. So I appreciate that. Appreciate hearing the wisdom that comes from you. And I thank you, and that's all I have on this one.
All right. And brothers, before we go, I just want to ask you, when we do sign off, I want you guys to hang on here for a moment on the Hangouts, okay? I want to say that this has been a very good boxing talk. Great stream for us tonight. And I want to say shout out to the LDBC and new media. And I want to give a special shout out to my co-host Hyphy, who's on vacation. So I want to let him know that I ain't forgot about him, but he out there on vacation while I'm out here with my sleeves rolled up, getting in the dirt and everything. So what's up with that, Hyphy? Where you at? No, I'm just kidding. But I want to say thanks to everybody who was able to join us this evening. This has been a wonderful, wonderful stream. Thank you for the compliments on the new look for the channel. It's something I have been working on behind the scenes, and I'm glad that everything was able to work well for us this evening. And I really appreciate the help for my guest tonight, the odd fella, Marlo's Corner, who had to drop off a little earlier because he had his own stream to do, and Reggie Owens, who's got a really great channel that's growing. Please go and subscribe to Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens, because the young brother is really cooking over there. He's got a lot of content going on with the sport, and you really should tune in and listen to what he has to say. So this is Stormybman, thanking everyone again for joining us. This has been episode 14 of the Friday Night Chop Session.